Imagine going to bed feeling perfectly fine, the day's worries melting away as you drift off to sleep, confident in the healthy choices you have made. You wake in the morning, but the familiar world has tilted on its axis, and something is terribly, irrevocably wrong. Your words, once clear and precise, are now a tangled, unintelligible mess, a frustrating jumble of sounds that your brain forms but your mouth cannot obey. The room spins violently as you attempt to stand, a nauseating vertigo that sends you crashing back to the mattress. Or worse, you discover with a jolt of pure terror that one entire side of your body, a faithful servant for decades, has become a useless, leaden weight, refusing to obey even the most desperate commands from your mind. This is not a dramatic scene from a late-night movie. It is a silent, creeping reality that strikes countless older adults without a single discernible warning sign, shattering lives in the quiet moments between dusk and dawn. As a neurologist, I have stood by too many hospital bedsides, holding the hands of spouses and comforting children who are completely and utterly devastated by a stroke that seemingly came from nowhere. This was not a catastrophe caused by a lifetime of smoking or a diet composed of fast food and processed sugars. In so many heartbreaking cases, it was triggered by something they were told was the very cornerstone of a healthy life, a daily habit they practiced with unwavering pride and discipline. It was triggered by fruit. Every single day, millions of seniors across the country reach for a piece of fruit, believing with every fiber of their being that they are nurturing their heart, sharpening their mind, protecting their vision, and aiding their digestion. And while it is true that many fruits are indeed wonderful allies in the journey of healthy aging, a select and surprisingly common few, especially when eaten at the wrong time of day, in the wrong quantity, or alongside certain prescription medications, can become silent saboteurs of your neurological health. They can cause your blood sugar to skyrocket to dangerous heights, creating a state of internal inflammation that damages the delicate lining of your arteries. They can dangerously dehydrate your brain as you sleep, thickening your blood and making it prone to clotting. Or, most insidiously, they can create a toxic, unpredictable interaction with the very prescriptions meant to protect your heart and your brain. The most frightening part of this entire equation? No one ever warns you. Your family doctor, your pharmacist, your well-meaning children, they all champion the cause of eating more fruit, never imagining the hidden dangers lurking within these seemingly perfect natural foods. Have you ever had a nagging feeling that your healthiest habits might be backfiring? A subtle sense that despite doing everything right, something still feels off? If that question resonates deep within you, then you are in exactly the right place, because the information I am about to share is not just educational, it might just save your life. Bananas, too much potassium, too fast. As a brain doctor who has dedicated my career to understanding the intricate web of factors that lead to stroke, I have seen my share of unexpected neurological disasters. But few things are more disturbing or tragic than watching a catastrophe unfold from a seemingly innocent and universally praised daily habit. And believe it or not, the humble banana, a fruit lauded for its gentleness, convenience, and supposed health benefits, can be one of those profoundly hidden dangers for the aging population. You have likely heard it repeated your entire life, from childhood breakfast tables to articles in health magazines. Bananas are a perfect snack. They are soft and easy to digest, which is a blessing for those with dental issues. They are loaded with potassium, a mineral we are constantly told is crucial for heart health. They are convenient, pre-packaged by nature, and even carry a heart-healthy seal of approval from major health organizations. For an adult in their 30s or 40s with resilient kidneys and flexible blood vessels, that general assessment holds true. But once you cross the significant threshold of 60, and certainly once you enter your 70s and 80s, the fundamental rules of the biological game change dramatically. Your body, particularly your kidneys, your blood vessels, and the delicate electrical conduction system of your heart, no longer handles sudden shifts in minerals like potassium with the same resilience or efficiency it once did. The margin for error becomes perilously thin, and what was once beneficial can suddenly become a serious threat. Let me explain this in the clearest possible terms, because your life may depend on understanding this interaction. As we age, our kidneys, the master filters of our body, naturally begin to slow down their operations. Their filtering efficiency, known as the glomerular filtration rate, steadily decreases decade by decade. This gradual decline is often accelerated significantly if you are already managing common age-related conditions like high blood pressure or diabetes, or if you are taking very common medications such as ACE inhibitors like lisinopril, or diuretics, often called water pills like hydrochlorothiazide. This means that potassium, which a single large banana is packed with, can begin to accumulate in your bloodstream instead of being efficiently flushed out through your urine. When this condition, known as hyperkalemia, develops, your heart's steady, reliable rhythm begins to flutter and misfire like a faulty electrical circuit in an old house. Your blood vessels, sensing this turmoil, can tighten in response, and in the worst-case scenario, this combination of cardiac arrhythmia and vascular constriction encourages the formation of dangerous blood clots in areas where blood should be flowing freely and smoothly. If one of those newly formed clots breaks free and travels to the intricate network of arteries in the brain, it can shut everything down in a matter of seconds, leading to a devastating ischemic stroke. I will never forget my patient, Mr. Raymond, a 66-year-old retired carpenter from Ohio who had built his life and his home with his own two hands. He was sharp-minded, physically active, and took immense pride in his meticulously healthy diet. His morning ritual was sacred and unwavering, a sliced banana over his steel-cut oatmeal, washed down with a small glass of orange juice alongside his daily blood pressure medication. He had followed this exact routine for over a year, believing with complete conviction that he was doing everything right to protect his long-term health. But one morning, his wife found him collapsed on the bathroom floor, unable to move the entire left side of his body, his powerful voice reduced to incomprehensible, slurred sounds. At the hospital, advanced brain scans revealed a small but devastating stroke in the right hemisphere of his brain. His blood tests provided the final, damning clue. His potassium levels were dangerously high, a state which had interfered with his heart's rhythm and triggered the formation of a clot overnight while he slept. He had absolutely no idea that his healthy habit, especially when combined with his blood pressure medication, was methodically and silently tipping his body into a state of acute crisis. Here is the crucial piece of information that most seniors are never told by their doctors or pharmacists. You do not need huge, sudden doses of potassium, especially not from multiple servings of high-potassium fruit consumed all at once. A single large banana can contain over 450 milligrams of potassium, more than enough to dangerously throw off your body's delicate electrolyte balance if your kidneys are not functioning at their peak capacity. If you consume that banana at night, a time when your circulation naturally slows, your hydration levels tend to dip, and your morning medication is still active in your system, you inadvertently create a perfect storm of stiff arteries, sticky blood, and a rogue clot that may not give you a second chance. If you are over the age of 60, and particularly if you take any medication for your heart or blood pressure, I implore you to reconsider your relationship with this fruit. Consider limiting yourself to half a banana per day, eaten in the morning, and always paired with a source of protein or healthy fat like Greek yogurt or a handful of walnuts to slow its absorption and prevent a rapid mineral surge. What used to be an unambiguous symbol of health for your body may no longer be safe without a full and sober understanding of the new landscape of your own biology. Grapes, the sugar bomb in a tiny package. Grapes are the very picture of innocence, a food that seems entirely devoid of any potential harm. Sweet, juicy, and refreshingly simple, They are a snack that feels as carefree and joyful as a long summer afternoon. They grace fruit platters at family gatherings, get tossed into children's lunchboxes, and are often served as a light, healthy dessert after a Sunday lunch with the grandkids. Who could possibly suspect that this beloved fruit holds a hidden danger? But what if I were to tell you that for someone over the age of 60, especially an individual with hidden vascular issues, borderline insulin resistance, or unstable blood sugar, a seemingly harmless bowl full of grapes could be a silent and potent trigger for a stroke? It is remarkably easy to forget, as you pop one after another into your mouth, that each individual grape is essentially a tiny, perfect sphere of concentrated sugar, glucose and fructose, wrapped in a delicate, easily digestible skin. While one or two may seem entirely harmless, consuming a large bowlful, especially of the seedless, extra-sweet varieties like cotton candy or Thompson seedless that now dominate American grocery stores, can deliver a massive and incredibly rapid surge of sugar directly into your bloodstream. For an aging brain and its delicate, fragile network of blood vessels, that sudden spike in glucose comes at a very heavy and often invisible price. As we grow older, our body's ability to manage blood sugar becomes progressively less efficient. Our pancreas produces insulin, but our cells become more resistant to its effects, a condition known as insulin resistance that affects a vast number of seniors, many of whom are completely unaware they have it. Simultaneously, our blood vessels naturally grow more fragile, less flexible, and more susceptible to damage from internal stressors. When your blood sugar levels spike rapidly after eating a high-sugar food like grapes, it does not just put a temporary strain on your pancreas. It ignites a fire of chronic, low-grade inflammation inside the delicate inner walls of your arteries, a layer known as the endothelium. This includes the vital carotid and vertebral arteries that supply your brain with all of its oxygen and nutrients. As these arteries become repeatedly inflamed from daily sugar spikes, they begin to stiffen, narrow, and lose their youthful elasticity. Over time, microscopic tears and lesions can form on the vessel lining, creating the perfect, rough, sticky surface where dangerous blood clots can begin to form and take hold. You will not feel a single thing as this process unfolds. There will be no pain, no discomfort, no obvious warning sign that will show up on a routine checkup. But deep within the silent corridors of your body, the stage is being quietly and methodically set for a silent, devastating stroke. Let me tell you about Mrs. Jeanette Morris, an 80-year-old retired schoolteacher from Missouri who prided herself on living a simple, natural life. She diligently avoided soda, candy, and processed foods, focusing her diet instead on what she believed was the purest source of nutrition: fresh fruits. Her favorite mid-morning snack was a generous bowl of crisp red grapes, which she would munch on contentedly while reading the newspaper, sometimes finishing 2 full cups without even realizing it. One afternoon, while sitting at her desk writing a birthday card to her grandson, she noticed her vision began to blur in her right eye. Moments later, her hand started to tremble uncontrollably, and she found herself staring at the card, unable to recall the simple word, "Congratulations." Her daughter, who had stopped by for a visit, sensed immediately that something was terribly wrong and rushed her to the hospital. The diagnosis was a transient ischemic attack, a mini-stroke, where a small clot had temporarily choked off blood flow to the left side of her brain. Her lab results were incredibly revealing. Her blood tests showed sharp, dramatic sugar spikes occurring around midday, and her long-term blood sugar marker, her A1C, had crept silently into the pre-diabetic range, a condition she never suspected she had. Even more telling was the imaging that showed evidence of chronic, low-grade inflammation throughout her vascular system, a dangerous state likely exacerbated by years of high-sugar fruit intake, without the crucial balancing effect of protein, fat, or sufficient fiber. What I desperately want every older adult and their family to understand is that even the healthiest seeming foods can become dangerous without the proper context. When you are over 60, the timing of your meals and what you pair your food with become just as critical, if not more so, than the food itself. Grapes, due to their high water and sugar content and low fiber, digest with incredible speed, sending a torrent of glucose surging through your veins. If you eat them alone on an empty stomach, especially when you might be slightly dehydrated or under stress, your body enters a state where your blood thickens, your vessels constrict, and the overall likelihood of clotting increases dramatically. You will not notice it that day, or even that week, but with each passing month, the cumulative damage builds and the risk accumulates until the day it finally breaks. This is precisely why I now guide my older patients to never, ever eat grapes on an empty stomach and never by the bowlful. If you truly enjoy them, please pair them with a source of healthy protein and fat, like a few almonds, a piece of cheese, or a spoonful of plain Greek yogurt, and always limit your portion to a small handful, preferably consumed during the active hours of your day when your body can more readily use that sugar for immediate fuel rather than letting it circulate and cause damage. Pineapple, the acid and sugar combination. There is something undeniably joyful and exotic about the taste of fresh pineapple that feels like capturing a bit of sunshine in a single bite. It is intensely sweet, delightfully tangy, and unapologetically tropical. Many of my older patients, particularly those trying to make healthier choices, enjoy it as a guilt-free treat after dinner, holding the firm belief that it is a light, natural, and even beneficial dessert, filled with enzymes that are rumored to help with digestion. But what most seniors and even many doctors are never told, and what deeply concerns me as a neurologist who studies the hidden triggers of stroke, is how this very fruit, when eaten at the wrong time or under the wrong biological conditions, can become a silent but significant risk factor for a stroke, particularly one that strikes insidiously overnight while you sleep. The complex danger of pineapple stems from a powerful trio of factors. First, it contains a potent enzyme called bromelain, which has the unique ability to break down proteins in your body. In small, controlled amounts, this might offer some minor digestive benefit. However, when consumed in larger quantities, especially on a regular basis, and most critically, when combined with certain medications, bromelain can interfere with the complex process of blood clotting. It can reduce the function of your platelets, the tiny cells responsible for forming a clot to stop bleeding, and can lead to an unpredictable state of either excessive bleeding or, paradoxically, reactive clot formation in response to vascular irritation. And of course, we cannot forget the sugar. A single cup of fresh pineapple chunks contains over 16 grams of natural sugar, which, due to its low fiber content, triggers a very rapid spike in blood glucose. Unlike berries or apples, which have more fiber to slow absorption, pineapple has a relatively high glycemic index, meaning it floods your bloodstream with sugar almost instantly. When you consume this late in the day or after dinner, that sugar is not being used for physical energy. It simply circulates through your system for hours, putting inflammatory stress on your blood vessels while you are trying to rest and repair. Perhaps the most overlooked and insidious threat of all, however, is the acid. Pineapple is one of the most acidic fruits commonly found in the American diet. This high acid content can severely irritate the esophagus and stomach lining, triggering silent acid reflux, a condition that in many seniors occurs without the hallmark symptom of burning pain in the chest. Instead, it can manifest as a chronic cough, a hoarse voice, or, most dangerously, it can cause micro-aspiration of stomach acid into the lungs and subtle pressure changes in the airway during the night. These nocturnal changes have been directly linked in multiple studies to reduced oxygen flow to the brain during sleep and a significantly increased risk of early morning strokes, which are statistically the most common and often the most deadly kind. I once treated a patient named Mrs. Clara Hughes, a vibrant 77-year-old retired choir director from North Carolina. She was sharp as a tack, active in her community, and, deeply committed to a life of clean eating. She had long ago replaced her usual after-dinner desserts of cake or ice cream with a few slices of fresh pineapple, a nightly ritual she had maintained with pride for over a year. Then, one morning, she woke up feeling unusually foggy and profoundly disoriented. Her daughter, who lived with her, noticed she was slurring her words and could not keep her balance while walking to the kitchen. A CT scan at the hospital confirmed she had suffered a small but significant stroke in the posterior circulation of her brain, the area that controls balance and speech. Her blood work revealed a perfect storm of contributing factors. Her glucose levels were elevated. There were physiological signs of nighttime reflux irritation in her throat, and lab tests showed irregularities in her platelet function. The culprit was not a single, obvious cause, but a dangerous convergence of factors created by her seemingly healthy nightly pineapple habit. The silent acid reflux, the late-night sugar spikes, and the subtle effects of bromelain on her blood clotting had conspired against her while she slept. A fruit she sincerely believed was helping her had nearly stolen her voice and her independence. For seniors, whose digestion naturally slows, whose vessel walls have thinned with age, and whose sleep architecture becomes more fragile, combining a highly acidic, high-sugar fruit at night is like lighting a match in a room full of dry kindling. But watermelon, not always hydrating. It is hard to imagine a fruit more universally beloved during a hot American summer than watermelon. Chilled, sweet slices on the 4th of July, seed-spitting contests with the grandkids in the backyard, and the pure, refreshing crunch after an afternoon spent toiling in the garden. It all feels so wholesome, so harmless, so unequivocally healthy. And yes, it is packed with water, earning it a reputation as a perfect hydrator. But for seniors, especially those with underlying cardiovascular issues, fluctuating blood pressure, or those taking certain common medications, watermelon can quietly and paradoxically tip the body into a state of profound danger. The threat comes not from sugar or acid, but from what this fruit can inadvertently take away from your system. It may seem like a complete contradiction, but watermelon, due to its high potassium and water content, can act as a potent natural diuretic, meaning it makes you urinate more frequently and lose more fluid. For a healthy 25-year-old on a hot day, this is no big deal. They will simply drink more water to compensate. But for a 75-year-old with delicate circulation, borderline low blood pressure, or who is already taking prescribed diuretics for heart failure or ACE inhibitors for hypertension, that extra, uncompensated fluid loss can lead to significant overnight dehydration, one of the most dangerous and silent triggers for an ischemic stroke. When your body becomes dehydrated, your blood literally thickens. Its viscosity increases, making it more sluggish and less fluid. Imagine trying to pour cool syrup through a very narrow straw instead of water. That is an accurate analogy for what happens inside your arteries. This thick, sluggish blood moves much more slowly through your circulatory system, giving it more time and opportunity to form dangerous clots, especially in arteries that have already been stiffened and narrowed by the natural process of aging or by conditions like atherosclerosis. The brain, which is exquisitely sensitive to any change in oxygen supply, becomes incredibly vulnerable when blood flow slows or is interrupted by one of these clots. This risk is magnified exponentially during the night, when the body's natural circulation and heart rate dip, and blood pressure tends to drop to its lowest point of the 24-hour cycle. A dehydrated state at this time is a recipe for disaster. Consider the case of Mr. Howard Larkin, an 82-year-old retired postal worker from Indiana. He was a model patient, doing everything he thought was right, walking daily, avoiding salty and processed foods, and snacking only on healthy options. He had developed a fond habit of eating 2 or 3 large, juicy slices of watermelon after dinner to cool down and, as he thought, to help himself stay hydrated before bed. What he did not fully appreciate was the powerful interaction this habit had with his prescribed medication. He was on a diuretic for mild congestive heart failure. Between the drug's effect and the potent natural water-pulling effect of the watermelon, his body was shedding far too much fluid overnight, every night. One morning, Howard awoke with severe vertigo so intense that the room seemed to be spinning like a carnival ride, and he collapsed when he tried to stand. At the hospital, his blood pressure was dangerously low, and his blood work showed hemoconcentration, the clinical term for thickened blood due to severe dehydration. Scans soon revealed he had suffered a small ischemic stroke in his cerebellum, the part of the brain that coordinates movement and balance. The clot had likely formed in his narrowed arteries while he slept. In a state of low blood pressure and thick blood, his favorite hydrating fruit had done the exact opposite of what he intended, with catastrophic results. What is worse is that the stroke permanently affected Howard's balance and coordination. A man who had been proudly mowing his own lawn just a week earlier now walks with a cane, a stark and constant reminder of how a seemingly healthy and logical choice can have devastating consequences when it interacts with the complex realities of aging and medication. Oranges, a risky citrus interaction. For generations of Americans, oranges and orange juice have been a steadfast and unassailable symbol of health in the household. A glass of fresh squeezed juice with breakfast, a bowl of bright, fragrant orange slices on the kitchen table. They have long been hailed as nature's perfect vitamin C miracle, a surefire way to ward off colds and start the day right. But for the growing population of older adults, particularly those who rely on a daily regimen of medications for heart conditions, high cholesterol, or high blood pressure, oranges and their juice can quietly become a dangerous chemical cocktail that sets off an unpredictable and hazardous chain reaction inside the body, one that can ultimately lead to blood clots and stroke. The problem is not just the sugar. Although a single large orange or a standard glass of juice can certainly send blood glucose levels soaring, contributing to the vascular inflammation I have already described. The more hidden and arguably more potent danger lies in a group of natural compounds found in many citrus fruits called furanocoumarins, something most seniors, and frankly many doctors, have never even heard of. While the interaction is most famous with grapefruit, other citrus fruits, including Seville oranges, pomelos, and to a lesser extent common oranges, contain these compounds as well. These furanocoumarins can profoundly and dangerously interfere with how your body metabolizes certain critical medications, especially statins, like atorvastatin, Lipitor for cholesterol, calcium channel blockers, like amlodipine, Norvasc for blood pressure, and some essential blood thinners. The mechanism is alarmingly direct. The furanocoumarins block the action of a critical enzyme in your liver and small intestine called CYP3A4. This enzyme is responsible for breaking down and clearing a vast number of drugs from your system. When it is blocked, the medication cannot be processed safely and gradually as intended. This can cause the drug to build up to toxic levels in your bloodstream, dramatically amplifying its effects. Or in some cases, it can prevent a prodrug from being activated, rendering it completely useless. This interaction can be deadly, not in an instant, but slowly and silently, by creating chaotic conditions where blood pressure plummets unexpectedly, heart rhythms become unstable, blood becomes dangerously thin or thick, and clots begin to form without any warning whatsoever. I have seen too many of my elderly patients pay a steep and tragic price for this innocent-seeming mix of a healthy fruit and a powerful medication. One who stands out in my memory was Mr. Elmer Bryant, a 79-year-old retired bus driver from Georgia. A kind, gentle man with a warm smile, Elmer was diligently taking atorvastatin for his high cholesterol and amlodipine for his blood pressure. He also prided himself on living naturally, starting every single morning without fail with a tall glass of freshly squeezed orange juice, his sunshine in a glass, as he affectionately called it. But Elmer had absolutely no idea that the coumarins in that daily glass of juice were preventing his liver from properly breaking down his medications. Day after day, week after week, the drugs were accumulating in his system, dangerously intensifying their intended effects. One morning, after feeling slightly dizzy and lightheaded for several days, Elmer stood up from his favorite recliner and collapsed onto the floor. He was rushed to the ER with slurred speech and profound confusion. A CT scan revealed a mild ischemic stroke, and his blood tests showed alarmingly elevated drug levels in his system, not because he had accidentally taken too much medication, but because his daily glass of orange juice had effectively blocked his liver from clearing it. His blood pressure had become unstable, circulating unpredictably and dipping too low at times, until a clot formed in the turbulent flow and lodged itself in a narrow artery in his brain. When I carefully explained this complex interaction to Elmer and his wife, they were stunned into silence. "All my life I thought orange juice was the best thing for me," he said, his voice filled with a mixture of disbelief and betrayal. "And it was, once. But the aging body is not the same machine it was at 40. What works without issue in middle age does not always work at 70 or 80, especially when powerful prescription medications are part of the daily equation." Lafleur, apples, the surprise sugar trap. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. This simple saying is more than just a folk rhyme. It is woven into the very fabric of American health wisdom, a piece of nutritional advice passed down through generations with absolute certainty. Crisp, juicy, and wonderfully convenient, apples are often handed out in hospitals, included in senior lunch programs, and packed with love by grandchildren who just want their grandparents to stay healthy. But for older adults, especially those who are managing blood pressure, prediabetes, or subtle cognitive changes, the common modern apple may not be the harmless, benevolent friend it appears to be. In fact, the wrong kind of apple, eaten in the wrong way, can quietly and consistently increase your risk of stroke by dangerously disturbing your blood sugar and undermining your vascular stability. You see, not all apples are created equal, and this is a critical distinction that is almost never made. While apples do contain beneficial fiber and polyphenols, many of the most popular American varieties, like Fuji, Honeycrisp, Gala, and Red Delicious, have been specifically and intentionally bred over decades not for their nutritional profile, but for intense, candy-like sweetness and a long shelf life. These modern apples carry a surprisingly high glycemic load, meaning they can flood your bloodstream with natural sugars, primarily fructose, far faster than an aging metabolic system can safely handle. If you eat one of these large sweet apples by itself, especially as a standalone snack without a source of protein or healthy fat to slow down its digestion, you trigger a rapid and significant blood sugar spike, which is inevitably followed by a reactive crash as your body releases a surge of insulin to cope. This violent swing in blood glucose affects much more than just your energy levels. It directly and negatively impacts your cardiovascular health. It triggers a state of vascular inflammation, increases the stickiness or viscosity of your blood, and can cause temporary but significant fluctuations in your blood pressure. When your blood sugar spikes, your blood becomes physically stickier and more acidic, your insulin levels surge, and your blood vessels temporarily tighten. When this stressful pattern is repeated day after day, year after year, it inflicts cumulative silent damage on the delicate endothelial lining of your arteries, including those that lead directly to your brain. Microscopic tears and lesions can develop on this inner lining, and your body, in its natural attempt to repair the damage, forms tiny blood clots over these rough patches. In a younger, healthier person, this repair system works efficiently and without issue. But in an older adult whose blood vessels are already narrower, stiffer, and less forgiving, these clots can become ticking time bombs, potential stroke triggers just waiting for the wrong moment to break loose and cause a blockage. One of my patients, Mrs. Louise Hammond, an 81-year-old from Pennsylvania, had been remarkably healthy for most of her life. She walked daily, managed her mild hypertension with medication, and was a diligent label reader at the grocery store. Every afternoon, at 3 p.m. sharp, she enjoyed a large, crisp Honeycrisp apple as her snack, feeling proud that she was choosing a healthy fruit over cookies or a pastry. What she did not realize was that she was also, like millions of her peers, unknowingly insulin-resistant, and those daily, sharp sugar surges from her favorite apple were overwhelming her aging blood vessels. Over time, she began noticing subtle symptoms she dismissed as just getting older. Her vision would sometimes blur in the evenings, and she often felt a strange sense of pressure in her head when she stood up too quickly. One evening, while preparing dinner, Louise suddenly lost her ability to speak clearly. The words were in her head, but they came out as a garbled mess. Imaging at the ER confirmed she had suffered a minor stroke. Her lab work showed the telltale signs of unstable blood glucose and endothelial inflammation. Her daily apple, a lifelong symbol of health and prudence, had been quietly setting her up for a vascular disaster. If you love apples, I am not asking you to give them up, but I am asking you to choose wisely. Opt for smaller tartar varieties like Granny Smith, which are consistently lower in sugar and higher in beneficial polyphenols, which are protective compounds for the brain. And most importantly, always eat your apple with a source of protein or fat, a spoonful of almond butter, a handful of walnuts, or a slice of sharp cheddar cheese, to blunt the glycemic impact and slow the sugar absorption. Your brain requires and deserves stable, steady fuel, not a violent, damaging roller coaster ride. Cherries, a hidden source of blood thinners. Cherries, small, beautiful, and bursting with a deep, vibrant color, have earned a stellar reputation in recent years as one of the healthiest fruits you can possibly eat. Doctors, nutritionists, and health bloggers often recommend them for fighting inflammation, soothing the painful symptoms of arthritis and gout, and even for promoting overall heart health. You see them praised in wellness magazines, sold as concentrated juices and supplements, and featured prominently at organic markets. But beneath their sweet taste and glowing, well-deserved reputation, cherries carry a little-known and potentially serious risk, especially for the significant population of older adults who are already taking prescribed blood thinners or other medications that affect the body's clotting cascade. The danger lies in a group of natural compounds found in high concentrations in cherries, particularly tart cherries, called salicylates. This substance might sound vaguely familiar, and for good reason. It is the natural precursor to acetylsalicylic acid, the active ingredient in aspirin. Salicylates work in a way that is remarkably similar to aspirin by inhibiting the action of platelets and thinning the blood. While this blood-thinning property can be beneficial in moderation for some individuals, for seniors whose blood is already being intentionally thinned by prescribed medications like warfarin, Coumadin, clopidogrel, Plavix, or even a daily low-dose aspirin regimen, adding another potent source of blood-thinning salicylates from a food source can dangerously push the body over the edge. The intended therapeutic effect can become a hazardous overdose. The result is blood that becomes too thin to clot properly when needed. This can cause fragile, age-thinned blood vessels to leak or, in the most severe and catastrophic cases, lead to a hemorrhagic stroke, a catastrophic bleed inside the brain, which is often more deadly than a clot-based ischemic stroke. Most people would never dream of connecting this grave danger to a simple bowl of fresh fruit, but I've seen this tragic interaction happen firsthand. Mr. Daniel Rhodes, an 84-year-old retired train conductor from Illinois, was a perfect and heartbreaking example. After a mild heart attack several years prior, his cardiologist had placed him on a daily low-dose aspirin to help prevent future clots. A well-read and health-conscious man, Mr. Rhodes had also read about the anti-inflammatory benefits of cherries. Every night, he would end his dinner with a small bowl of sweet dark cherries, his nature's dessert, sincerely believing they were helping his joints and his heart. For many weeks, everything seemed perfectly fine. Then, he started experiencing persistent, dull headaches, occasional bouts of dizziness, and strange waves of nausea that he couldn't explain. One morning, he woke up profoundly confused and began vomiting, and his terrified wife rushed him to the ER. A CT scan of his brain revealed every family's worst nightmare: a small but significant brain bleed. It was not caused by high blood pressure or an injury. His blood had simply become too thin, and a small, fragile vessel in his brain had ruptured under the normal pressure of circulation. A thorough review of his diet and medications made it tragically clear that the compounded, synergistic effect of the salicylates from his daily bowl of cherries, on top of his prescribed daily aspirin, had created a silent, escalating crisis within his circulatory system. This is precisely what makes this particular fruit interaction so insidious. The effects are gradual and subtle. You feel fine, perhaps even healthier, until the moment you are not. Please, if you love cherries, I urge you to enjoy them mindfully and with this knowledge. A few here and there as a rare treat are likely safe for most people, but you must avoid concentrated cherry juice or large daily portions if you are on any medication that affects blood clotting, including aspirin. Strawberries, mold, pesticides, and inflammation triggers. They look so innocent and appealing. Bright red, perfectly heart-shaped, and bursting with a familiar sweetness that evokes memories of summer picnics and homemade shortcake. Strawberries are the very picture of health, appearing on hospital meal trays, blended into brain health smoothies, and recommended by dietitians as a low-calorie, high-vitamin treat. But for older adults, the unvarnished truth behind the conventional strawberry is far less sweet and far more complicated. This beloved fruit, when not chosen with extreme care, may be silently increasing your risk of stroke, chronic inflammation, and long-term brain toxicity through multiple converging pathways. First, let us address the uncomfortable but critical reality of modern agriculture. Conventional strawberries are consistently one of the most heavily sprayed fruits in the American food supply, topping the Environmental Working Group's Dirty Dozen list for pesticide residue year after year. These are not benign chemicals. The cocktails of fungicides and insecticides used on these delicate berries are designed to be potent toxins. For seniors, whose natural detoxification systems in the liver and kidneys inevitably slow with age, these chemicals do not just wash away. They can bioaccumulate in fatty tissues throughout the body, including the brain, where they can disrupt critical neurological function and weaken the integrity of blood vessel walls from the inside out. Many of these commonly used pesticides are known neurotoxins, meaning they directly damage brain cells and significantly increase oxidative stress, the rusting process that accelerates brain aging. The risk, however, does not end with pesticides. Strawberries, due to their fragile nature and high water content, are also notoriously susceptible to mold, sometimes invisible to the naked eye. Certain molds produce mycotoxins, which are potent inflammatory agents that can trigger a systemic inflammatory response, further stressing the vascular system. Furthermore, strawberries contain natural compounds called purines, which break down into uric acid in the body. For the large and growing portion of seniors dealing with gout, kidney issues, or underlying vascular inflammation, elevated uric acid levels can spark a painful inflammatory cascade that not only affects the joints but also narrows blood vessels, increases blood pressure, and promotes the formation of dangerous blood clots. A patient of mine, Mrs. Elaine Carter, an 80-year-old retired librarian from Michigan, had always loved strawberries and would eat a bowl of them with her breakfast several times a week. Over the course of a year, she began experiencing morning dizziness and a persistent, unexplained swelling in her finger joints. One day, she awoke with a frightening numbness in her right hand and a noticeable slur in her speech. A scan at the hospital confirmed a minor ischemic stroke, and her comprehensive lab work showed elevated uric acid levels and blood markers indicating significant oxidative stress. Her daily strawberry habit, which she thought was protecting her with antioxidants, had become a subtle, daily dose of risk factors. If you insist on eating strawberries, I cannot stress this enough. Please ensure they are certified organic every single time to avoid the pesticide load. Wash them thoroughly right before eating, and do not rely on them as your primary source of fruit. Or panars mango, blood sugar spikes and medication interference. To many older adults, a mango feels like an indulgent, luxurious tropical treat. Its soft, fragrant, and intensely sweet flesh seems like nature's perfect, healthy dessert, a far better choice than a piece of cake or a scoop of ice cream. But for seniors, especially those who are managing complex health profiles that include heart conditions, blood pressure fluctuations, or a daily regimen of multiple medications, the mango may in fact be a silent saboteur, creating significant metabolic stress and dangerous drug interactions. The uncomfortable truth is that a ripe mango is one of the highest sugar fruits readily available in our markets. A single, medium-sized mango can contain a staggering 45 grams of sugar, which is more than you would find in an average glazed donut. This massive sugar load is absorbed with incredible speed, leading to a violent blood sugar spike, followed by a subsequent, disorienting crash. For a senior who is already dealing with some degree of insulin resistance or has unstable blood pressure, this metabolic roller coaster places enormous strain on the entire cardiovascular system, and particularly on the delicate, non-negotiable blood vessels in the brain. But there is another, more hidden danger. Similar to oranges and grapefruit, mango also contains natural compounds that can interfere with the way your liver processes a wide array of critical medications, including some used for heart rhythm, cholesterol, and blood pressure. It can slow down the CYP3A4 enzyme system that your liver uses to break down these drugs, causing them to accumulate to potentially toxic and unpredictable levels in your body. This can make your blood pressure dip too low, causing dizziness and falls, or it can cause your heart rhythm to fluctuate without warning, creating the perfect turbulent environment for a blood clot to form. I vividly recall the case of Mr. William Booker, an 83-year-old retired firefighter who, on his daughter's recommendation, started eating a handful of dried mango every afternoon as a healthy fiber snack. He was also on medication for high blood pressure and to control his atrial fibrillation. He began experiencing episodes of significant lightheadedness in the mornings, which he dismissed as a part of aging. One day, he collapsed while getting out of bed. He had suffered a minor stroke. His lab work in the hospital was revealing. His blood pressure had been dropping too low overnight, and the levels of his heart medication were abnormally high in his bloodstream. His daily mango snack had overloaded his liver's processing capacity, dangerously amplifying the effect of his prescriptions and creating the unstable conditions that led directly to his stroke. If you enjoy the taste of mango, I implore you to treat it with extreme caution and respect. A few small bites, paired with a protein source during the active part of your day, may be acceptable for some, but never eat a large portion, especially of the dried variety, and never eat it before bed. And it is absolutely critical to consult your doctor or pharmacist if you are on any prescription medications. Facts. Final reflection: the truth about fruit, aging, and protecting your brain. After journeying through the hidden risks of these 9 seemingly healthy fruits, you might be feeling a mix of confusion, frustration, or even a little betrayal. You have been told your entire life, by doctors, by dietitians, and by a culture obsessed with wellness, that fruit is nature's perfect medicine, a pure and simple gift from the earth that you can always trust. But the truth, especially for those of us who have earned the privilege of navigating life over the age of 60, is more complex, more nuanced, and far more critical to understand. Aging changes everything. It is a fundamental shift in your body's operating system. Your kidneys filter more slowly, your liver processes medications and toxins with less efficiency, your insulin response becomes less reliable, and your blood vessels lose their youthful flexibility. This means that every single bite you take matters more now than it ever did before. The margin for error has shrunk, and what was once harmless can now carry a significant hidden risk. This information is not intended to create fear or to make you paranoid about your food. It is about fostering a profound respect for your age, for the unique biology of your body in this chapter of life, and for the quiet, subtle signals it is constantly sending you. The wonderful news is that not all fruit is dangerous. In fact, some fruits, when chosen wisely and consumed thoughtfully, are powerful and essential allies in protecting your brain. I encourage you to reach for low-sugar, high-fiber, antioxidant-rich berries. Blueberries, raspberries, and blackberries are your brain's best friends. Choose those tart, green Granny Smith apples for their lower glycemic impact and higher concentration of protective compounds. Embrace avocados, a magnificent fruit rich in healthy monounsaturated fats that support nerve function and help regulate blood pressure. Use lemons and limes freely as flavor boosters in your water and on your food to support detoxification without the burden of sugar. Most importantly, remember that timing and pairing are everything. The new rules for fruit consumption in your senior years are simple but non-negotiable. Eat your fruit earlier in the day when you are active, never on an empty stomach, and always pair it with a quality source of protein or healthy fat to slow down sugar absorption and prevent dangerous metabolic spikes. A handful of berries with plain Greek yogurt, a few slices of green apple with almond butter, a small orange with a handful of walnuts, and never ever eat a significant amount of high sugar or acidic fruit right before you go to bed, a time when your circulation is at its lowest and your body is at its most vulnerable. You have navigated the complexities and challenges of life to reach this chapter through wisdom, resilience, and perseverance. Do not let a simple, unexamined daily habit become the silent thief of your precious health, your sharp mind, or your cherished independence. You are not just eating to live anymore. You are eating to stay sharp, to stay standing, and to stay you. With the right knowledge and the right choices, you can continue to feed your brain, your body, and your spirit the bright and vibrant future you so richly deserve.